We were wondering what is happening in the boardrooms. So as you might know, Roland Berger is a strategy consulting firm, and we're advising our traditional clients, which are sovereign funds, big corporates, in getting involved in the Web3 and digital asset economy. And if you just want one slide of summary, what's happening in the boardrooms and what the sentiment is actually this. So there's only one thing stronger than all the armies in the world, and that is an idea whose time has come. I love this statement when opening the discussion about digital assets, because I've been in this space since 2015, and in 2016-17 we've done a lot of consulting work for companies that were interested in how to use blockchain and how to benefit from this new technology. And then if you recall, in 2018, beginning of 2018, Bitcoin went from 20,000 to 5,000, and then the party stopped, in the sense that most of the projects that were ongoing on the consulting sector stopped, which gives you a nice message that it was back then only about figuring out what is this trend. So there was no real interest in all of this. Times have changed, and obviously this conference is a living example of that. And the adoption motivation has completely shifted. So I'm going to give you a few insights on two things. On three things actually. One is 7 trends that we always used to discuss with board members, and that resonated quite well, and that always leads to kind of ideas on adoption. Second is I'm going to share with you some insights from a C-level survey that we've done end of last year. And the third one is about what are the 3 questions that CEOs should ask themselves at this point in time. So starting with the trends. So there's 7 trends that we defined. The first one is the obvious one. All of you are very well aware of that, which is the future of finance. So all the companies need to ask themselves, whether they're in the financial sector or not, how do I deal with this new asset class? How do I want to integrate digital assets in my operations? And if I'm a bank, how do I actually want to deal with this entirely shift in a new business model? Second is all about asset tokenization. We just heard a lot about tokenization of securities, but in particular this is also about tokenization of real-world assets that have not been liquid before, that now become liquid to the changing technology. Trend number 3 is about the rise of the metaverse. Even though the rise is taking, I think, a big hit, I think it got a reality check after 2021 and 2022 being very much about hype around this entire topic of metaverse. I think now we're coming to the conclusion that there was a bit of, let's say, too much hype around it. You saw Disney, let's say, cutting down the metaverse team and many others as well. We still believe the metaverse is going to have its place, but it was definitely overhyped. Trend number 4 is about supply chain improvements. So basically using the tech for improving your supply chain, making it more resilient, and in particular for the first time ever in history, allowing for machine-to-machine transactions that would actually make commercial sense. Trend number 5 is about the data economy, and that might sound boring in the first place, but if you think about this promise that data is the new oil that all of us have been hearing for the last 10 years, then I think the unfortunate realization came that data is only the oil for a selected few companies, namely Facebook, Google, and so on. Now, for the first time, we have a technology at hand that provides an incentive structure to share data in a privacy-preserving way. This is going to be massive and huge when we talk about AI, in particular the intersection with AI, because if AI is going to continue to rise, which most likely it will, you need a provenance of data. You need data wallets that confirm that data belongs to you and that you can share data. The other thing is that this technology, and in particular Ocean Protocol, allows you to share data with artificial intelligence on a compute-to-data algorithm, which means I'm not forced to share my clear data. I can just let the AI run an algorithm over the data, and then it gets the response that it wants. This is already in implementation. So 4 months ago, Mercedes launched a venture called Eccentric, and Eccentric is exactly this. Eccentric is a data marketplace, B2B, based on Ocean Protocol technology. Trend number 6 about crypto mining and staking, something that for the European continent might not be as interesting, but many other parts of the world heavily investing into mining, in particular Bitcoin mining. Why? Because more and more we see that Bitcoin mining is a symbiosis with the utility system. It helps to use excess energy and it helps to stabilize grids. And in return, it also helps to make investments in renewable energy assets more attractive because it increases the utilization. And then there's trend number 7, which is the underlying trend without, from our point of view, none of these 6 above will really scale to mass adoption, which is digital identity. Why is that? Because obviously if you're an institution and you want to scale, then you still have audit requirements and they're probably not going away, which means you need to demonstrate that you know who you dealt with, even in a trustless environment. So we asked around 200 CEOs end of last year to rank these 7 trends in terms of relevance for their business and the impact that they're going to see in the next 5 years. Who of you thinks that metaverse was the #1 trend? Okay, I gave it away a bit. It's actually not, and we were very happy to see that. So the #1 trend that CEOs across all sectors basically see the most, that will have the most impact, is digital identity. Not surprising, but also we see a lot of projects going on about digital identity, whether it's for individuals, whether it's for organizations, or whether it's for assets. Right? If we think about a machine-to-machine economy, think about the energy system, low voltage communication in the energy system, electric vehicles, PV, rooftop batteries, and so on and so forth, they need a digital ID that is tamper-proof. Second big opportunity is the data economy. And I mentioned this already in the beginning a bit, but now is actually the chance for every company that missed out, so to say, on the Web 2.0 train to get on a Web 3.0 train, because the cards are dealt in a new way. So data economy is one of the very big things that we see a lot of projects going on at the moment, in particular on institutional side. Number 3, metaverse, and I already teased it. It's important, but is not worth the hype that was created in the last 2 years, also to be very clear. We've seen a lot of projects and a lot of investments from institutions that went headfirst into the metaverse, and then unfortunately after came to the realization that what are we going to do with it from a business point of view. It makes sense for a few sectors, for sure, and I'm gonna share a few views on that as well, but it's not gonna be kind of the game changer, at least for the next 5-6 years that it was hyped up to be. Number 4 was also quite interesting. Result number 4 was about, we asked, if you're a CEO of a company, do you work already on your digital asset and Web3 strategy? And 6 out of 10 CEOs said, yes, we're working on it, or at least we're contemplating on it, which is huge. I mean, that is a massive increase compared to a few years ago. Which shows you also that the topic reached to a certain extent the board level as well. Now, if you think about the sectors that are working on this, there's a very, very clear differentiation. As you see here, maybe not surprising, the telco and tech sector is clearly leading, but then it relatively quickly dribbles down in the sense of how much involvement or thinking about a Web3 strategy is actually happening in the sectors. Banks, 53%, and I think that also is kind of what we're sensing in the market. There are banks that are really leading the way, like we've seen in the panel before, but there are also still a few banks that are still waiting and not daring to touch the topic. Then result number 5 that was quite interesting. We also asked, would you be willing to integrate cryptocurrencies or any form of digital assets in your business, whether it's for accepting payments or it is for paying your employees? And even we're still very bullish obviously on the technology, we're surprised by the result that if you say, What's the positive side of the answer? So yes and maybe account for 72%. So there is already a strong willingness to think about the integration of digital assets. Having said that, we have three fundamental core beliefs, and that is that by 2030, most of the value we transact globally will be in the form of digital assets, whether it's one form or the other. Second is that Web3 will fundamentally change the landscape of the internet, in particular the value transaction of the internet. Best example for me there is no reason why a Web3 version of Uber shouldn't exist. Uber today has a take rate of 30%, depending on the jurisdiction you're in. A Web3 version could probably do this for a take rate of 5%. And efficiency usually always wins over time in business models. 3 is the metaverse. As mentioned, we think that it's definitely becoming a de facto experience standard, but for very selective industries. Tourism is definitely going to be one of them. Education, social interaction, and maybe a few others, obviously, but these are the main things where we see real metaverse adoption that has a business background. So, having said that, there are 3 key questions that CEOs are asking themselves right now. Number 1, is my business ready for Web3 and digital asset? Relates a bit back to the finding on 6 out of 10 are working on this, which is great compared to a few years ago, but it's still 4 out of 10 are not thinking about it. And we have a strong belief that no matter what sector you live in or you work in, this is going to affect your business in one way or the other, and you need to at least be prepared. Number 2, how will my business utilize tokenization of assets? And that could be, again, the tokenization of securities that we heard before, but in particular, if regulation is there, how will the asset tokenization of real-world assets impact my business and the liquidity that I now can bring to the table? Trend number 3. Question number 3, how do I position my company in the battle for Web3 talent? We today have around 40,000 Web3 developers. That's not enough to deal with a new revolution of the internet. So this is going to be a very, very tough question for many companies. Once they figured out that there is potential for them in this space, the immediate next question is, how do I get talent on board? Yeah, and that's the final slide. I'm not sure how much time we have left. 4 or 5 minutes, so we have a bit of time for questions.